Hey everyone!
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome! New graphic!
New
Also,
graphic.
our first order of news is that we have reached affiliate on Twitch. Thank you so much for our first big milestone.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Woo.
gamers. Yeah!
We knew.
Woo! We love you!
We knew it was the biggest news of the day, so we needed to start off with it first.
Yes, biggest news of the day. First order of business. What is up, everyone? Thank you so much for the donos already. We have a lot of news to bring to you.
Yeah, so let's dive right into one of our topics that we led with at the end of the previous episode, which is that Capcom was basically coming out and saying that 80% of all of its games are sold digitally.
Which is a huge number. So Matt TM Kim reports that according to Capcom, 80% of its games are sold digitally, and the company is encouraged by the trend to increase that number to 90 before long.
So during the Q&A portion of its recent annual shareholders meeting, Capcom was asked what its plans were for strengthening digital sales. Capcom revealed that its current digital download sales ratio is approximately 80%.
They continued to add, while it ultimately depends on how our customers behave going forward, for the time being, we are promoting our digital strategy with an objective of 90%, since there are some customers who prefer to own discs.
So, as reported by GamesIndustry.biz, Capcom's digital sales have exploded, growing from 53% last year to 80%. Even Capcom predicted growth to only reach 75% this year, but it appears that the shift to digital is happening faster than anticipated.
Capcom attributes the growth to titles like Monster Hunter World Iceborne, but the company plans to increase digital sales by expanding the availability of digital games to more markets worldwide.
And other companies like PlayStation announced that digital game downloads have overtaken physical game sales. And companies like EA and Activision also report strong growth in digital gaming sales.
These upward trends explain why both Sony and Microsoft are looking at releasing digital-only next-gen consoles, and we have a digital-only confirmed for the PlayStation. For the Xbox, I don't think we have anything official yet. Sony reveals the slimmer digital-only PS5, while Microsoft is rumored to announce Lockhart, a similarly digital-only Xbox Series X.
So I think this is of no surprise to most of us, as I could say that probably a large majority, probably 80% of my library is digital. And to see that they're shifting this focus is one that is just part of the times that we're living in.
It is. I wanted to ask the chat how many of you own discs or, cartridges or, digital games, because I personally have everything digital. The only, I guess, a hard copy of anything I had was Super Mario Odyssey, and that's because a friend lent it to me, which is why some gamers do prefer actual discs, is because it's easier to share with your friends. And, I don't have anything on hard copy, but I was able to borrow something, so... Do any of you? Adros loves that hard copy. I personally like everything digital, and I just reinstall games on my computer from Steam all the time. And with a PlayStation, I'm cool with doing the same, honestly.
Yeah, I understand the appeal of, just having the disc. I think there's something for me that every time I buy a game and it comes in a disc, the magic of unwrapping it, opening it up.
It makes a nice gift.
There's just an experience of nostalgia that's tied with it. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I'm also like, I understand the digital library is rather appealing. I have that concern, that overall concern of, if I don't have access to the internet, what content do I not have access to on the digital version? Whereas with the hard disk, you get everything that's like on that disc.
Adrius makes a good point. You like to display the games. I think it's nice to, have as part of your, all this stuff that I have in the backgrounds. I don't need, but I think it's nice to have those hard copies. I still have old Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games still in my closet. Not because I even really play them, but I just like to have them. Yeah. It's kind of like memorabilia or a memento of my childhood. Yeah, really, and I do see that value. I think hard copy makes a nice disc. It's great for sharing. If you don't have access to the internet, it is faster than having to re-download games all the time. But personally, I don't buy any physical copies of any discs.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too, with PlayStation's announcement of having a digital version and a disc version, if that, disc version is just kind of like that connection to the next gen, help people transfer over because they're so used to it.
Right.
But then at some point they're pro, they're higher quality systems that we know eventually will come out, will just be digital only, because this is huge. Like even Capcom saying they're going to focus on pushing to 90%. What is it going to be when it's, they're at 90 and they're now like, we're going
it's
fully digital.
the next step is 100% there. I'm glad that they still, support discs. We're not seeing something like with the iPhone where everyone's beloved headphone jack is now gone, and you can't charge and listen to music at the same time. And if your Bluetooth is dead, you're out of luck. So I'm glad that they're still supporting discs. I can see in the future of these consoles going digital only exclusively, but I kind of hope that there will still always be, maybe a disc version, at least for, another 5 years of like, we realize that not a lot of our sales are physical, but, that's still an option for, I guess, the more traditional gamers.
Yeah, like one of the stories we have today, we'll be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. That game is one that I actually tried to get the collector's edition when it first was announced, but they just sold out everywhere really fast, which was unfortunate. But see, I think in that realm, if it's like a cool like special edition case, like it has some, variation than the normal you would find this at a GameStop or Best Buy, then I think it's, even more cool to have. But, as much as I side with Adros on like, I like displaying the games, I am just kind of getting to that place. I'm so used to digital content with playing so much on the PC now that I'm probably just going to end up buying Ghost of Tsushima digital.
Right, that's a good point with the collector's editions as well, or these nicer versions, especially as we see game prices go up, and it seems that some of these companies do want to justify, hey, if you're going to buy the more expensive version, like this is also a bundle, this is the physical copy, you get a signed poster, you get this exclusive, XYZ for buying this game. I could see that as like a cool like premium. Typically, when people do want the physical copy, it is because they want some sort of collector's item to go with the game. So I could see that as an opportunity that maybe discs they kind of shift to this more premium, or this more kind of novelty, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, I could see there being a community for that, especially like those of us who grew up with them, those who like to still have the discs. If it becomes more of a place of like they are more of just to be there as like a physical presence, as like a novelty or like a display or whatever, then they themselves take that as a feature. You're going to buy the disc, but you're going to get something like maybe it comes with a stand, or it just comes with some sort of different appeal to it. I think one of the cool things I liked about Red Dead Redemption 2 when you got the special edition was you got the really cool looking map that came with it to show like the map off and everything. So the stuff like that, as like you said, a novelty, I think we'll still see them around, but I think we should get mentally prepared for watching them slowly fade away.
I think so too, and that kind of brings us into our next topic, which is about backwards compatibility. And since a lot of older games are on discs and aren't on digital, you're going to need those disc drives in order to play those games.
Hey, thank you, Venatu. Welcome, and thanks for following us. So, PlayStation has a patent that has been discovered, and it's hinting at backwards compatibility for old PlayStation games.
And back compat is a phrase I put ironically on the screen. Back compat just means backwards compatibility. When I first read that, I was like, what is that? Is that some like industry, gaming intel, like some term? It's just backwards compatibility. I don't know. Some game journalists are too lazy to type out the whole
thing. Sounds like a
thing.
Virus.
It does. It sounds like something's wrong with your, oh my gosh,
your console
is
have back
backward
compat? It does. You should send it in to get fixed right away.
It's like the red ring of death or something.
Right, yeah.
So we currently know that the next-gen console will be compatible with many PlayStation 4 games when it launches, but not all of those PS4 games right away. But it hasn't been confirmed whether we'll be able to play even older PlayStation games on the PlayStation 5 via backwards compatibility.
So this patent, relevant to the matter, suggests that those older games could be run on the PlayStation 5 by using a virtual machine that takes the place of the older operating systems.
Twitter user Renka Schedule spotted the patent via IGN, and a translation of the user's tweet indicates that the patented system would be able to store game titles across the older generations of PlayStations within the console's cloud gaming library.
And then the user said that the patent indicated that the games could be ran on a virtual machine, which would just mimic the operating system of the console they originally came from.
The user continued in their thread from there with more patent information about other potential PlayStation developments pertaining to the PlayStation Store and other features.
Hey, Crying Potato, welcome. Thank you for following us here. This is something just a quick note that we've seen before. We just call them emulators. So this isn't surprising technology in any way. And, whether the PlayStation 5 would be compatible with older PlayStation games before the PlayStation 4 has been a big question leading up to the console's release. And it hasn't always looked great for the prospect of the system being fully backwards compatible with the past PlayStations.
This patent gives some hope to the backwards compatibility wishes, but like any patent or rumor, it's not a guarantee that we'll see the next-gen console be compatible with older games.
And what we know is that the Xbox Series X will support backwards compatibility with thousands of past Xbox games at launch, and will support games from the Xbox One, 360, and even the original Xbox.
While you won't be playing all of your old Xbox games right away on the console since it won't support everything initially, those looking into buying the Xbox Series X at least know that their console will support their library of games eventually.
With this information, this discovery of this patent, it doesn't surprise me that, if this is true, Sony wouldn't be leading with this. This would be news for Sony that they would, they've been doing like a breadcrumbs thing. But if this does turn out to be true, does this bolster that hype even more for the PlayStation 5?
I think so. I think backwards compatibility is such it's such a unique topic, I guess, for consoles, because I don't know if the majority of gamers like to play their old games. I know I don't. Not sure if anyone in the chat likes to play their old games, or it's more of you like the option of being able to play your old games, or as EG says, you said at this point anything should be backwards compatible. I don't know why they're taking so long. So designing a console to be backwards compatible is actually very difficult. The way that games are processed has changed drastically over time. And I think, being a part of PC Master Race, I'm spoiled because if I buy a game, it's always going to work on that PC, versus for consoles, it's, very different on the software side and how it interacts with the hardware there. But there is this expectation from consumers nonetheless that it should be a given.
Yeah, and we do need to take into account the commentary from that Sony exec who was saying, when we make a new console, especially with the PlayStation 5, our goal with this is that you are playing the software coming out made specifically for the PlayStation 5. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe they took their PS Now aspect of gaming that they have, and they basically just turn the PlayStation 5 into this digital library of older games using, this technology, so that they appease the community that's like, what? I want to be able to play my older titles, and if you're not going to have that option, I'm not going to buy it. And in their mind, they're kind of like, well, we don't want to lose out on those consumers, so let's go ahead and offer it, but we're not going to make any major hardware changes or have to, make it where the disc needs to be read. We'll just make it run the OS and give them what they want.
Right, that's true. I think, there needs to be a good system in place where, if you have a disc, maybe there's a way to register that copy in your PlayStation Store with your PlayStation account. So it does operate more like Steam on your PC, where you can just log into, your next new PC and you still have all those old games. You don't need to, have those discs. You don't need to, hold on to those, especially if those discs are, those discs, a lot of them is pretty old technology at this point. And to just kind of accommodate, have to accommodate that with the new generations of consoles, I feel maybe isn't holding them back, but I do think it's kind of living in the past in a way that, can be revamped.
Yeah, and for me, as I hear this information, and my fingers are crossed, because I'm like, yes, if this is there, you'll have more people come over, which means a bigger player base. It means more, for online interactions and having fun with the games that will be multiplayer, the more you have people who own the console. Is the Games Pass now from Microsoft, again, saying that this is true, does the Games Pass only become the only unique feature about the Xbox that it has to offer?
There's also the design of the console. That's unique. Something unique that Xbox has.
That's true.
I will say, Hardware wise, I mean, the Xbox technically has more teraflops than the
Right.
PlayStation 5, but I do think that, PlayStation having backwards compatibility does make these consoles more similar. I think besides the Game Pass, it also comes down to like a different feel. Some people are diehard Xbox no matter what, and there's also a difference in the controllers. Some people don't. It took me a while to kind of get used to PlayStation controllers. I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this like X
Same.
square button thing? Like, this is dumb. I don't get it. But now I'm all about it. But there is, I guess, a different culture with each console, and I think that's also at play here.
Yeah, because it's for me, it's that whole. Well, if you're going to invest money, which might actually be the other aspect, we don't know yet what the Xbox Series X is going to be. There were some rumors and speculation that it'll be the cheaper console, and that's where it could buy people in. We made that comparison of like with virtual reality, if you want to get a top tier VR headset, you'd want to go for the Valve Index. Most people don't have that money to spend. But if you want, an entry level virtual reality, you could do like a Windows mixed reality headset. We'll bring it like $200, $300. So Xbox could just be going, hey, we just want to take the place of being entry level next gen gaming, whereas those people who need to go to the PlayStation 5 are going to have to shell out more money. So that, that's still there in the conversation. I look at things on paper, and outside of the teraflops comment that you just made there, I'm like, what is Microsoft able to do to say this is why our console is the console for those jumping into next gen?
I have a question for those in chat and anyone who plays on an Xbox. How much is your friends list a factor? Like all your friends that you might have on your Xbox machine, if you switched over to a PlayStation? I know sometimes there isn't, that cross-platform play, and you'll only be able to play with your Xbox friends. But, does hopping on voice comms, really have a factor? Because a lot of people do just hop on to play with their friends at home. If all your friends are on Xbox and you're just kind of like part of Xbox gang, then maybe there is also resistance there to jump over to PlayStation.
That's a great question, because I actually remember the years that I spent on Xbox Live, and the amount of friends that I met. I left a lot of those behind making the jump to PlayStation. I did my best to message everybody, let them know, hey, I'm not going to pay for the Xbox One when the PS4, in my opinion, is a better console. If you have PlayStation, here's how to find me. I did that whole process, and I've reconnected with somebody that I played with on Xbox Live for a long time, thanks to crossplay. So we're able to play together again. But yeah, you're right. It's true. If I think about it, there's quite a few friends in my past that I just, had to walk away from, and it was unfortunate.
That's so sad. Kane says all my friends are on PlayStation. I mean, like when I had like when I was on Xbox Live, I had everyone on Xbox. Since I, stopped playing for, a few console generations, like that's not really a problem for me to switch over to PlayStation.
Right.
Either way, but if I had stuck with, each new Xbox console, I think that might really keep me to Xbox.
Yeah, and EG was saying, all their friends are on Xbox, and it doesn't really affect them. But that being a factor, it's the same kind of thing with like people who have always had Apple products. Making the switch over to PC can seem very difficult. You've just gotten so used to this other way of doing something that you're just like, I'm going to stay here, no matter what the other technology has to offer. But I just, I'm that kind of person that it's like, look, if I'm going to make that kind of investment, I want to know that I'm making a strong investment and not one that I feel like, doesn't really live up to the amount that I'm going to have to spend.
Exactly. Apple users, kick W. There is, an allegiance to, as you said, like Apple versus Android. I use Apple even though I know it's not really any better. I guess it's just what I'm used to at this point. And I think a lot of the, the articles that we read about PlayStation, Xbox, or a lot of what's out there doesn't, pay much attention to, I guess, the soft qualities of these two consoles that keep gamers around, like their loyalty to a certain brand, their friends list, if they just, feel like they align with a certain brand's values more than the other. Yeah. I think those aren't really talked about a lot, especially when it comes to, what's published out there in gaming.
It's true. And I think, one of the things that we've discussed here with what Sony has done and what they still have to do before the console comes out, slowly releasing information, is I think they're just continuing to take the position that they have taken since, we've heard about the PlayStation 5 while PlayStation 4 was successful, knowing it was eventually coming. It's like, when I hear this, what other, new information is going to come out? What other surprise does Sony have behind the curtain that they haven't displayed to us yet? And it just makes me excited as someone who's going to jump into the PlayStation 5, marketplace. It's like, this is exactly what you want out of the company, that you're going, hey, I'm gonna invest in you for the future, for my entertainment.
So, do you have any particular games that you'd like to see from old PlayStation on PS5? Does chat have any old games? I guess the only games I know are now on Steam, or I don't think I'm missing out on any specific PlayStation games. I know 007 Nightfire was an incredible game. That's a big part of my childhood, but I don't really feel the need to go back and play it.
I have a couple, because I think one of the things that there was also speculation on, or a rumor on, again, we have to take all of this with rumor until we prove how does it work and what does it do, but that the system would have the ability to upgrade the game. So if you played an old game, it would get a HD version of it. There's a couple of games that come to mind. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. I'd love to be able to see that on PlayStation 5 with the upgrade. Another stealth game that was around for a little while that was a lot of fun was Siphon Filter. This was another one that I was a huge fan of when it was out and around. And then a fun fantasy one was Medieval. I don't know if you guys remember Medieval.
That one.
Medieval was another one of those, a lot of fun that I'd love to see with a huge upgrade like that.
I think we've heard from Xbox, I believe, that, with older games played on the Xbox, it does give them a bit of a visual upgrade, and it uses, the new hardware as much as it can to try to, bolster some of the graphics there. When I play remastered games, I do notice the difference when they've been kind of cleaned up to, still look nice on my, on my new modern monitor, and there's some aspects of the game where you can't really change, but, especially with the menus or some of the interfacing, it's possible to make those, still look nice on new consoles and on new hardware.
We'll see how it is, and I can't wait to confirm this. I hope this is a confirmed aspect, that this patent isn't just, we patent this and we're not going to actually do it. So that would be a huge letdown. Still wouldn't stop me from going in with Sony, but would just be one of those kind of moments of that's a bummer.
I think there would be a bit of backlash. I think this would be a huge bummer, for lack of a better word. If there isn't backwards compatibility, there's already such weird phrasing around, like PS4 and Xbox One titles for the Series X or the PS5 with dual entitlement from EA, which sounds like a racist term or something. It's like, I'm entitled double over you. I don't know. There's dual entitlement, and there's also smart delivery from Xbox, and there's just this weird corporate phrasing, and I just want to know so can I play my old games on this machine or not? I don't need to buy into some
very simple
premium weird thing. I'm just let me play my games, please.
Exactly. Yeah. So just, one of those things that we'll hopefully find out more about with the Xbox Series X, because they do have their first party thing coming up at the end of July. I believe they scheduled it for the week of July 20th. So that's something we'll, have to check out and hopefully get more confirmation on. And then, of course, when Sony decides to release us more information, as they're pulling a Nintendo and choosing when we get to learn new stuff about it. Our next story is one that'll be a little spicy, but it's also one that, it doesn't surprise me.
So this story is about the U.S. Army's Twitch stream. And the U.S. Army had a Twitch stream that was flooded with questions about war crimes.
So, Andy Chalk from PC Gamer reports that in late 2018, the U.S. Army put together its own esports team as a part of a marketing push to encourage young people to consider a career in the military. As a part of that effort, the Army also recently launched its own official Twitch channel to share the Army's passion for gaming, showcase competitions, and connect with our viewers.
But as reported by Vice, its big PR push has recently run into some issues with the Twitch community. During a Call of Duty Warzone stream last night, players began asking about war crimes committed by the Army, inquiries that were quickly deleted by moderators.
The heightened interest in the Army's esports activities was spurred, at least in part, by a recent Twitter conversation between its esports team and Discord. The exchange concluded with the Army using the UWU, which
the uwu face.
The uwu face, yes. For those who don't know what that is, it's a U, a W, a small lowercase W, and an uppercase U. Which targeted a large number of viewers actually found this to be in bad taste, given the source.
So Twitch streamer Joshua Strotnium David, which you can see some of his, this is some of his stream that was uploaded to YouTube. I don't think this is specific. This isn't specifically from last night, but he is a U.S. Army Ranger and a member of the esports team, referenced that reaction during the stream last night and didn't seem to have any regrets.
So this is what he said. I think every post that I do from now on is going to say Uwu in it, just to flex. Y'all gonna talk all that crap to my angel on the esports team, the nicest person in the entire world? Little internet keyboard monsters is what you are, and I won't stand for that. I'm bigger than you.
So, unsurprisingly, that didn't smooth the waters, and the Army's troubles continued, through later in the stream. Moderators set a 1-hour follow requirement for posting in chat, but multiple viewers were patient enough to follow, wait for an hour, and then ask about, for instance, the 2015 bombing of an MSF hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan. That chat restriction was extended to 24 hours shortly before the stream finished, but that's only a 24-hour timeout, so, the next time there's a stream on that channel, I am sure those people are coming back.
Yep, and I think we all know that the U.S. military has long used video games as a recruitment tool. The original America's Army FPS, which was released way back in 2002, was one of those. More recently, however, it shifted its focus to esports. The Army was the first to make the move, but the U.S. Navy and Air Force have since established esports programs of their own and have also partnered with major esports organizations for high-profile tournament sponsorships. The sponsorships not only put their branding front and center at live events, they also enable setting up quote-unquote experiential activations on site, a term that I'm pretty sure all of us can take as a recruiting booth.
It's not a recruiting booth, Marone. It's an experiential activation on site.
So when I'm on site and I'm experiencing it, you'll activate me.
Yes. So, but the live streaming aspect of, this whole shift may prove more challenging than the military expected. America's Army was a one-way street, but the inherent interactivity of streaming on Twitch opens the door to people who may take issue with American military adventures or the military's propensity for targeting young, impressionable audiences for recruitment.
And the U.S. Army's esports team has not immediately responded to a request sent in by Kotaku for comment. It did provide Vice with the following statement regarding one user who apparently tried to discuss white phosphorus, which is a chemical the U.S. military has reportedly used in the past, and it is mentioned in Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
They said, quote, "This user's question was an attempt to shift the conversation to imply that soldiers commit war crimes based on an optional weapon in a game, and we felt that violated Twitch's harassment policy. The U.S. Army offers youth more than 150 different careers, and ultimately the goal of the Army esports team is to accurately portray that range of opportunities to interested youth." And I've just got to say, it doesn't matter if someone violates Twitch's harassment policy in your stream. You can ban them for no reason. So them quoting Twitch's harassment policy to justify a ban just further tells me how out of touch they really are with, what it's like to stream on Twitch.
Amen. So interesting. While the U.S. Army, the Navy, and the Air Force have all embraced esports, the Marines, typically seen as the most gung-ho of the country's military branches, rejected the idea earlier this year. And this is what they said was, quote, "due in part to the belief that the brand and issues associated with combat are too serious to be gamified in a responsible manner. Some local Marine recruiters do have marketing programs with esports organizations. However, such as one earlier this year with esports' Stadium Arlington, they, quote, said the largest dedicated esports facility in North America was granted 1 hour of free gameplay per qualifying grade for high school students who wanted to earn A marks on their report cards through the Marine Corps Academic Excellence Program.
There is so much to unpack here. Kane, what you said was my first thought was, so wait, my tax dollars are being wasted on this? My tax dollars are being spent sponsoring someone to stream on Twitch and moderators banning things in the chat? Really?
Yeah, this is where you start to ruffle some feathers for people who are aware of the way in which countries operate, specifically our own, as this is what we're talking about right now, is the United States. You have every right to ask these questions. You have every right to say these things. For them to turn around and ban you for saying something that isn't
That's
you
fair.
Coming out and trying to attack them, but it's just you asking a simple question of like, can someone answer to this type of thing that when I think about it, I put money towards that. So that bothers me and doesn't sit well with me. And I'd like some form of, interaction on it. Oh, hey, look, here's a live stream with someone who represents this. I'm going to come in and talk about this thing that I've been bothered by.
I have so many thoughts on this, and I just want to say, I just want to, thank the troops. I respect them for serving in the military. I'm in no way trying to, put down the fact that they are serving, for our country. That's not the issue here. The issue for me is, what the Marines said, which was it's strange to kind of glorify, and gamify combat when what they're doing is real combat where there are real stakes. And I know that there is a culture, or I've heard that there is a culture, in the military, among certain branches, that a lot of, these soldiers do play, modern warfare. They do play a lot of these games in their downtime. And even though they experience real combat, they still also like combat in video games. I mean, a lot of people do. But I think that this is a very strange move for them. I think they're trying to show that you can have a career in esports, but if you have a career as a pro gamer, maybe they could set them up to when they leave the military, maybe they could be an esports coach, maybe they could be a caster, maybe they could be a content creator, who knows, but setting them up with those skills versus just giving them a platform to stream on Twitch doesn't say career at all to me. That doesn't, that doesn't really amount to much in the scheme of things.
Yeah, you're to echo what you said initially is I'm so thankful for all of the men and women who serve our country and live the lives that they live and ultimately end up having the traumas that they do, that I would wish we would put more time into, helping those individuals and rehabilitating those individuals. There are, however, and this is kind of where the controversy comes into place, there are, however, people at home who sit in these powerful positions and they make these decisions where our tax dollars go to being used in a way in which we don't really get a say for. And a lot of us, I think, feel like we do need to have a place to have a say in that matter. So when I hear, hey, there's a live stream going on, there's an individual who is representing this there, you should be clearly aware that this is probably going to happen. Someone's going to come in and probably say something that might be uncomfortable. Your choice of banning that person, your choice of restricting chat looks horrible.
It does.
Right?
It does.
It's like, what are you trying to hide here? And the fact that you're dismissing it and you're going this far to suppress the conversation is one that now I go, okay, well, we need to find a way to discuss this, because this was wrong. As much as I believe, what took place was wrong. You suppressing someone's, freedom of speech to ask these questions and talk about these things, is who do we hold accountable for that?
Right. It's very different if, or I think it's different if I'm streaming, someone says something kind of rude, I ban them. They're like, freedom of speech. And I'm like, that's not the point of freedom of speech. It's so you can criticize your, critique your government, etc. Speak out. But if the military is streaming while they don't need to adhere to, that claim of freedom of speech, it does look really bad if they're not listening to these people. I think that they've done a horrible job of controlling the narrative. Every time I see tweets on Twitter about, recruiting for the Army, all the comments are just the same thing that we've seen, in this U.S. Army chat, which is about war crimes, about pollution, about, mismanagement of funds or overspending, et cetera, et cetera. I think that they could have a successful channel if they were more along the lines of, I don't know how many of you know Stack Up, which is a nonprofit that works with veterans and sends like games to help like rehabilitate veterans, or provide a sense of like mental comfort to have games when soldiers are deployed, when soldiers have come home and it's hard readjusting to normal civilian life. Stack Up, I've met some of the people that work for them. They're wonderful people, but I think if they worked with the U.S. Army to be like, hey, we are supporting soldiers through video games, I think that's a cool, route they could take, versus just like, oh, I'm a soldier and I'm playing a game on Twitch, like, give me bits.
Right. Yeah, this is where I kind of appreciate the way the Marines handled this. Like, hey, we're not going to get involved with this. The gamifying this and kind of like jumping into this space. It's the conversation. I played with a few people on Modern Warfare. One of them was a former Navy SEAL. I've played with a couple other former U.S. Army, Marine individuals in my lifetime, and a lot of them, they have to carry around, essentially a burden of like, hey, there's just things that I can't talk about. There's just something that I sign on the dotted line for. I think there's a way to, properly handle an uncomfortable conversation.
Yes.
It's the same thing for anybody of an industry. Like, has anybody ever called on a 1-800 number and they have a complaint about the company that they're calling, like a support 1-800 number, and the person on the phone isn't the person directly responsible for your complaint?
Right.
However, they are the person representing the company at the time, so they are the ones that are going to hear your complaint. We kind of already accept that that's a thing that happens. So, in this space, the moderators or someone should have been standing by and ready and have been properly educated as like, I don't want to use an extreme example as like a negotiator, but someone who's trained to mediate this situation if it arises, so that the person streaming playing who isn't allowed to talk about these things because they are contractually bound to that based on their agreement, that they handle it and not the streamer.
I think also that's a good point. Also, whenever I've seen NASA's streams, if they're, like launches, I think they streamed the SpaceX launch, they had the chat in emote only mode, which I was like, oh, bummer. Like, I came here for the chat. And, maybe it was to deter trolls and to deter maybe people are going to be just like trolling NASA or saying bad things, and they wouldn't want that.
You faked the moon landing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so they started, I think they started off having emote only chat, but now that these trolls have come into the Army's chat, if they change that to emote only, it's just going to look like a cover up. It's not going to look like, hey, this is more of just a thing you watch and not really chat about. It just seems like it's just stifling, these people that, a lot of times do have valid complaints. And the exchange with the, Discord and the Army tweeting ooh reminds me of Discord's pivoting from that kind of language. Discord used to be very like, ooh, we have technical issues, like, oh, I'm baby, and I think Discord has realized like, oh, that's kind of inappropriate outside the sphere of gaming. And right now the Army is not seeing that is inappropriate as well, especially when they do the work that they do. The comments that I've seen on, some of these YouTube videos is also, people are posting like, ooh, people are buying into it. And now it's just like a meme. And I don't want that to snowball into kind of just having a meme culture around the Army, because I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah, it's like this mindset of like a good intention type thing, but not being mentally prepared or having gone through like your checklists, going through the thing of like, well, what if this occurs? What if that occurs? Are we prepared for this? This is a place where it's a public forum. People are going to say some things. There is now one person, like as he was saying in there, one soldier is on the stream. This is happening. And that person in and of themselves is going to be suffering so much stress to all of this. Like, wait, what do I do? How do I handle this? What am I supposed to say? How am I going to react? That in turn is going to create anger. That in turn is going to be frustration. So that reaction could be, an unfortunate reaction in that realm of frustration, but rightfully so. You know what I mean? They didn't sign up to do this stream and to get that kind of backlash. So this is just something where I'm like, if you guys are going to do this again, put this on pause and get the people in place to properly handle this the next time you choose to do it, or just don't do it again, and we'll be okay with that. I mean, seriously, just don't do it again. Take the route of let's not gamify this. We did it. It was a bad choice overall. Let's just, shift our focus and not being in that, on a Twitch stream or a live stream again.
I was always very confused by the messaging. I've seen some U.S. Army booths at like PAX South or, PAX East. There'll be a booth and I'll kind of like wander over and like peer from the edges, like not quite wanting to go and being like, what is this? Like, so I'm, not enlisted. Should I just not pay attention to this booth? Are they trying to bring awareness to this? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it really just a recruitment tool? Does this have substance, or is this just a way to try to have more, young people enlist? I don't quite understand what their goals are. I don't understand if, with the Twitch stream, they're trying to, bring better public sentiment to the Army, if this is just, something cool for the soldiers that they're doing. I also don't really understand the end goal. I think they need to make their messaging clearer. As you said, I think they need to get a team in place. Yes. They need to interview people who, I'm sure they could reach out to Twitch themselves and, ask for advice about this. There is a right way to do this. Right now, they are doing this the wrong way.
Yeah, and they either, if they don't have those people in place, they need to go out and find them. And make sure that when this happens again, this doesn't happen again, because this could have been avoided. The handling of it could have been avoided. Ultimately, we are where we are talking about it now, and it's not something to take as a failure if they learned from it.
It's a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
This is a very hard lesson. They had to learn this the hard way, unfortunately.
Yes, very much so.
But on to some exciting news, especially for PC gamers. The PC gaming hardware market is expected to grow by $3.6 billion in 2020 due to COVID-19. This
is pretty big. So the latest JPR report, also known as the John Petty Research Report, reveals that the PC gaming's hardware market is set on a significant path for growth this year, mostly thanks due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The lockdown measures have resulted in games ordering upgrades and accessories for their PC gaming hardware.
Even more interesting is that the report highlights the arrival of millions of brand new gamers during the pandemic, which had already been noted by two of the biggest publishers in the industry, Activision and Electronic Arts, a couple months ago. The PC gaming hardware market is thus poised to grow by approximately $3.6 billion this year, with a 10.3% sequential growth of sales year over year.
So COVID-19 has created a big spike in sales for PC gaming products in the near term, and the total market is approaching $40 billion in 2020. However, we temper our forecasts for possible economic issues in 2021 and beyond. Forecasts are heavily dependent on consumer confidence. But nevertheless, we still predict that there is going to be this growth over 5 years, even in the face of a console cycle.
They've improved their accessory analysis this year and have added a new category for game recording and streaming products. Studio quality cameras and microphones, capture cards, and personal lighting have become common items for high-end gamers and are making their way down into the mass market.
That is a huge number.
Huge number.
I'm not surprised in any way. I was some of my money is in that number, so
yes, a lot of my money is.
Yeah, and even recently during COVID, saying like I need to upgrade certain aspects of my PC because I'm going to be doing something more from home. At our previous place of work, we had a place that we went to, and that all handled that. So now it's like, well, you got to do it on your own. Mm-hmm. This makes a lot of sense, and I'm even meeting a lot of console players through like Call of Duty who are just like, I'm jumping over to PC. I have a close friend of mine who is like, I bought a gaming PC. It gets here in a few weeks. I'm excited to make the jump.
Cool.
But it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's catching on. This 20 billion.
20 billion. This is a video from Linus Tech Tips, which I know some of you really like their content, just building a PC. I'm planning on building a PC soon. Thanks again to chat. And I think, as as the years progress, it's also more approachable. More, young students are learning about coding, about programming, about computers. I think it's becoming less and less niche to build your own computer and, really more approachable. I think that there's going to be, even more interest in the coming years about, building your own PC, because it really is just like advanced Legos. Like when you get down to it, it's not that difficult to put all the pieces together. So I think it's cool that the PC gaming market is growing. It's also interesting to hear that a lot of gamers do want, studio quality cameras and microphones, capture cards, all the lighting, all the bells and whistles. I know a lot of people now that don't really stream, but they like the idea of streaming, or they want, they like streaming every now and again. And they have, a setup that's nicer than mine. And it's kind of, a hobby thing to have, all of, this streaming accoutrements, around you. And I just think it's so funny that, streaming culture has kind of bled into general gaming culture, which has bled into the mainstream.
Yeah, and that's really interesting too. Is I've also noticed, and this is weird as well, is like I've also noticed people start to ask. They're like, "Oh, well, you stream and you game and you do all that stuff, so you must know a lot about computers." And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yes, but past getting into like what graphics card you need and stuff like that. But I found that really interesting. To be the case that you could buy like a pre-built PC and be like, oh, I'm a PC gamer. Someone automatically, if you say I'm a PC gamer, will associate you with like this expert.
Yes.
And you're like, no, I know Alienware built it. You need to call Alienware. I have no knowledge in any of this stuff. So this is still where we're kind of like in that old phase of thinking, so this is going to only, I think, bolster more of that as more people are like, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to use Google. I'm going to ask a friend. Which friend am I going to ask? The gamer friend.
The gamer one. No, that's so true. I think if I tell people outside of gaming that I built my own PC, they're like, whoa. And I'm like, I just followed the labels. Like it says to plug this thing in here. Like, yeah, as you said, like, I don't really know. And when I ask my friends who have built PCs and I have a question, they're like, oh, I don't know. You're going to have to Google it. And when people ask me questions about PCs, I'm like, I don't know. You're going to have to Google it. And it's just like, a lot of us aren't really experts. We're just good at Googling. And it's, pretty self-explanatory to kind of follow directions, be careful, take your time. I found out really late to be careful not to, fry your parts with static, which I'm glad I, found out before I started building my PC. I hope that it becomes, more, I guess acceptable, normal to build your own PC or because it's very scary when you've never built a PC to build one for the first time, because it does seem like, a huge project to take on. It feels very daunting because it's like, oh, well, I'm not an engineer. Like I can't build a PC. So I would like, building PCs and, swapping out, your own hardware in, even with the PS5, you can add your own SSD. I believe I want that to become more common, less scary, because it's not that daunting. It's not that big a deal at the end of the day.
Yeah, you said something in Phoenix. Phoenix Call was saying something there too that is true. It's like it's now easier to do. Before wasn't so much the case, but now they've just done it in a very like module type way. Right. You just take it out, put it back in. However you want to make it happen. So that part of the whole process has become easier. I think it's that, whatever that mental block is when someone like looks at a computer and they're just like, it does all of this amazing stuff. And then they're just like, because it does all of this amazing stuff, it must be so complex under the hood. And while it's like, yeah, a large majority of that is true, if you're not actually building the chip, right. Again, Phoenix said it as well, just follow direction. Like just, or like you were talking about, YouTube, just
lots of YouTube.
Follow someone who's done it. Look at what they're doing, and, take your time, work through it. Don't think it's going to like, Transformer. Yeah. Now I have a PC. Like, don't think any of that's going to happen. But just, go into the mindset of like, this is going to be a fun, advanced Lego experience.
Yeah, I think that, I used to be like, oh, like, I'm not smart enough about computers to do this. But, I built PC. I still don't really know much about computers. As you said, like, unless you're building, like, the chips themselves or the actual pieces, you don't really need to know, any of that stuff unless you want to. So
PCs in disguise.
PCs in disguise. That reminds me of that meme about how everything is cake. Someone's got to make a PC cake to slice through.
I love it. Oh my god.
Yeah, cool to see that the PC gaming hardware market is growing and by so much.
Yep.
Great news.
Well, probably going to be I would say this might be our final story. It's going to be pretty meaty, as this is a game that is coming out in 7 days, everybody. We have a little bit of more information talking about Ghosts of Tsushima, or as Kaiser likes to say, Ghost of Sushi, because what we have learned
as Maddie says it, he's Japanese. Because when I say it, I'm like, I don't want to be racist.
That's right. But I think we've continued to use... I think we've continued to use it, Ghosts of Sushi. So,
Ghosts of Sushi.
Yeah, Ghosts of Tsushima. That's what it is. Yeah. So we've learned that there are 3 regions, as well as hundreds of points of interests for us to explore.
So we've heard a lot about how big Ghost of Tsushima is, with developer Sucker Punch promising it's their largest open world by a landslide. But of course, size isn't everything. Haha. Variety is important too. Weird way to start off this article, but
it's okay. Yeah, you're like, you got a big map, but you got nothing to do in it. I don't really care. That makes sense. What are we talking about here? Come on. So, thankfully, it sounds like the folks at Sucker Punch are packing a lot into their virtual version of Tsushima Island. And according to a new post on the PlayStation blog, Ghost of Tsushima's world will be split into 3 regions, which will further be divided into 40 unique biomes.
These will include forests, swamps, and frozen mountains. Sucker Punch is working to make each one of these biomes feel unique through the use of color and the types of foliage you'll find there. With these 40 biomes, expect hundreds of different points of interest to interact with.
And Sucker Punch's Tsushima will not be a one-to-one recreation of the actual island, but there will be some real-life landmarks and some stuff from mainland Japan, which were used as inspiration. Ultimately, the level designer focused on the contrast between the natural and human world.
The world of Tsushima is built around 2 pillars, natural beauty and man-made order. While exploring the world, you may follow a string of torii gates to a forgotten shrine, assault a fortified castle, or find an abandoned fishing hut near the water.
And there are hundreds of locations in Tsushima to explore. And of course, what we heard in the last gameplay, hidden rewards to find too. And based on the region, different locations have their own identity. For example, the healing town of Akashima is located in the lowland wetlands.
Moss hangs and grows on every surface, mist lingers above the ground, and incense burns near the Great Bell. You might even hear frogs croaking around you. It's mysterious and beautiful.
Ghost of Tsushima drops on PlayStation 4 July 17th.
So what do you think, chat? Are you excited to explore this world for yourself? Excited to have your Superman-like cape that is constantly blowing in the wind behind you? I am looking forward to this. This is, I think... I love how there's a big Red Dead 2, RDR2 phase, and I think this might be kind of the second wave of that. This game feels very, Red Dead Redemption-y, albeit with a very different tone, very different setting. But, it's still you on your horse, making your way through the wilderness, lots of, open world to explore, lots of shrines, lots of points of interest, lots of combat.
Yeah, this is that... And especially the variety of combat. If you want to play as the ghost or you want to play as the samurai, the choice of all of these points of interest, what do they require you to do? Is combat being involved? How do you want to handle that situation? We know that the morality system plays out to your story. So how do you choose to handle that situation? I think what they've done here is just, again, something we've talked about is this is like that final song. This is like the encore of the PlayStation 4, just coming out and showing what we should expect going into the the next play, so to speak. And that the PlayStation 5 this is a glimmer of that experience. And just hear this variety is there, and I can't wait. I'm so excited to just go and get lost in Tsushima and wander around and make these decisions for myself.
Me too, and I have faith that, it's going to have a good story, it's going to have a good, arc that carries you through the game, especially since we've seen some games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey
Phoenix.
that are great games, but they don't really have a lot more content. It's like, oh, well, you sneak into another castle, and then another fort, and then another fort, and then another fort, and there's not really a variety in that besides, searching chests that are just in different locations. I think that especially, even just with the diversity of biomes in this game, that's going to bring a lot more. There's a lot of like hidden features. Like if you like follow this like fox through the woods, you'll like get to, the fox den, and there's a lot of ways to kind of, really wander off the beaten path.
Yeah, and these, they were saying, will like lead to unlocks for your visuals, or maybe you'll find some material that you need for, like equipment or whatever. And I think that's just this wonderful way that they've put in there to just break up what will probably feel like the intensity of the combat. I mean, because we talked about this before, 1 or 2 hits of the sword from an enemy, you're probably going to die. And that's what they were saying, is like they're really trying to mimic the real life aspect of what this would be like, which makes sense. That's what it would be. So, there's going to be some stress there in a situation of what do I do in this moment? And like Decane Guardian was saying, like, I'm looking to favor as playing as the ghost, because I'm least likely to take the most amount of damage by stealthing my way around and handling everything with quote unquote low morale.
I think I will try to play as the ghost, but then inevitably just alert all the enemies and have to play as a samurai anyway, which I always end up doing. I'm like, yo, I'm going to be like really sneaky. And then all the enemies are like, who's there? What's that? And I'm like, oh, geez. Like, now I have to deal with everyone at the same time. That's
so funny. That reminds me of playing Tom Clancy's Ghost Breakpoint. The funny thing about that was like every time you're like stealth, it's, silent pistols, and then you just somebody of course blows something up or alerts the whole entire base, and then it's just guns loaded and you're just like unleashing all these rounds. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're like, I'm doing so good, I'm doing so great. Everybody knows I'm here. Time to be a samurai.
Yeah, that's how I pretty much played The Last of Us. I tried my best, but it would end up being a big gunfight every time, and just a lot of panic running and gunning. Yeah, it's fun.
And also the variety of points of interest too, that is really exciting to me. The more I think about it, and the more I kind of like process what this game is going to be like when exploring, is the photo mode. Like, with all of these points of interest, the photo mode can get kind of like, oh, I've seen this location, I've already been there, But with all these people, whether they choose to play in the black and white mode or they do it in the regular mode, how your Jin looks versus how someone else's looks based on what they've discovered, that is going to be really exciting to get the variations of these looks and these photos, so that we can all still continue to be mesmerized by this game in a fresh way.
You can see where they were just customizing like the leaves falling, or you could have the snow falling. You could have Jin look angry or happy. Like in these photos, you can, create these beautiful scenes. This looks like something I'd want on a screensaver, like wallpaper engine already. I think we're going to see a lot of, cool pieces coming out. It's very relaxing. This is nice. I think that even though this is a game, at its core, about war and about combat, I think there's also, a nice way to be, surrounded by nature in a way that many of us, don't get to be in this modern world, and especially right now in lockdown.
Yeah, and something here that they just showed is one of the features I'm really excited about, that they didn't just commit to the voiceover, English voiceover or region-specific voiceover, is to play this game with subtitles. Because it's, for me, it's like watching a foreign film. I can't watch it dubbed. Just give me the subtitles. Let me experience it authentically, and I'll read and I'll keep up. And in fact, I always find myself learning more, because if I'm really into it, I'm actually reading and I'm paying attention to who's who and what's happening. So this is another thing I'm really excited about with this game.
I agree, and sometimes it throws me out of it with the dubs. If there's like a foreign language game or film and it's dubbed in an American accent, I'm like, I don't know, it like takes it just like adds like a strange layer and takes away from the story. This samurai old movie mode, I'm hyped for. I don't think I'll probably play in it, but I'll probably like switch in and out of it every now and then.
That's what I think. I think it's that really cool feature of like, I feel like playing like this. And then you do that. But these moments right here, if you're telling me you come across and it's in the boss fight and it goes into this like cinematic mode, you as the player, you're like, oh, it's about to, the sword just came out. Let's do this. You know what I mean? Like that moment of just intensity was already there. So yeah, this is exciting. I'm so happy this game is coming into our hands in 7 days.
In 7 days, you'll be able to relive your former life as a samurai in Tsushima.
Yes. But that does bring us to the end of our news hour for the end of our second week doing daily gaming news live here on Twitch. Woo-woo.
Woo woo! Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can get all the affiliate things squared away since we met that requirement. So you'll be able to sub. We'll have to come up with emotes. Let us know what kind of emotes you'd be interested in. I haven't thought about it yet.
I haven't either until you just said it. Now my brain's like, oh, what are we going to do?
Let us know. We've got some cool stuff coming for you. Maybe some new music also in the starting screen next week. Doing cool changes, doing big things. Thank you for a wonderful second week. Thank you for supporting us as we continue our venture.
Thank you so much. This is not possible without any and every one of you who comes in and enjoys, us giving you the news on everything happening in the gaming industry. Kaisa and I are just so thankful for you all. But also, don't forget, if you are watching this on YouTube, we do this live Monday through Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you want to tune in live, join in the chat with all these amazing human beings and have a wonderful conversation about all the topics that we dive into. Great. But also, don't forget, if you are watching us on YouTube, to like, subscribe, and just continue to be a part of the DGN family.
DGN...
You like that?
What?
You like that? The DGN family?
DGN family. Yeah, I thought you were going to say something else. Sorry, I was like, what's next?
No, I was just going to say for daily gaming news. No,
I see.
But no,
Go ahead.
it's so true. It's so true. The DGN family.
DGN fam.
But for daily gaming news and for this second week, I am Marrone.
I am Kaisa. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
See you next week, everybody. Have an amazing weekend.
Bye.